That's right. You're listening to the smooth sounds of the world according to Jen and Carolyn.
Hey, Carolyn.
Hey, Jen.
What are we talking about today?
I'm very excited to do this episode. It is 2 weeks late.
It's 2 weeks late. Why?
Because we did the live stream. We're so exhausted after that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we did record the censorship episode last week.
But this came first because we were fascinated by MAGA women.
Not only fascinated by MAGA women, but their obsession with promoting Christian nationalism. So because me and Carolyn are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we decided to focus this episode exclusively on the colorful cornucopia that comprises the ladies of the MAGA movement, but not just the ladies of the MAGA movement and their, their strange utterances like Jewish space lasers and, all the crazy shit that comes out of their mouths.
Yeah.
But we really want to focus on their emphasis on Christian nationalism.
Yes.
So, because some are super loud and proud and willing to flagrantly vape and engage in sex acts in public. Others, like Ginni Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, they make moves more insidiously behind the scenes. But make no mistake, she is a big player in this movement. So they all differ slightly in their approach and appearance, but there's one thing they're united on. They want the U.S. to be a pillar of Christian nationalism. So, we're going to talk to you about not only Christian nationalism, but how Christian nationalism really isn't Christianity.
Yes.
So these ladies, these ultra conservative ladies, at least on paper, they want nothing more for the U.S. to become a Christian nationalist state. We think that this is more pressing than ever.
Yes.
This is important stuff, you guys, because we don't want to be a theocracy.
No. And it's such a pattern too.
It is a pattern.
It's like, and also like, be Christian, be Muslim, be whatever you want to be, but we're still human and humans are imperfect. So it's a little bit more frustrating, I think, and this is why it bothers you and I. You cannot call someone else disgusting or vile or all the things you think. Or I suppose you can, but then you're doing the same thing.
Well, you know why you
can?
It's
so hypocritical.
Do you know why you can?
Actually tell me. I don't know.
Because we live in a country where there is a separation of church and state, where we have the First Amendment, where you can, to an extent, say what you want. This is predicated on our last episode. But also what people forget when it comes to the First Amendment, it's not just freedom of religion, it's freedom from religion. Yes. And that's why this is so egregious.
I don't think they want that, though.
Of course they don't.
They want hardcore.
Yes.
Christian nationalist religion. I don't mind I don't mind religion as a concept.
I don't mind people practicing religion.
Yes. As long as it's not hurting anyone and it's open-minded and it truly is faith.
Yes.
But I guess that's another episode, huh?
Yeah. I will go ahead and call their faith absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
They do not, as Christians, adhere to the teachings of Jesus Christ. No. Not the Jesus Christ whose teachings you and I were educated on. Not the Jesus Christ that Pope Francis, God rest his soul, believed in. Somebody who serves the poor and serves immigrants and treats people with dignity and respect, regardless of who they are and where they come from. Jesus hung out with fucking thieves and sex workers, man.
Not Christian nationalist Jesus.
Right.
He's very different. He's very white. He's very skinny.
Yes. He's got
sometimes looks like Zac Efron.
He's got, dude, one of my favorite movies is Hamlet 2. And they have a song in it called Rock Me Sexy Jesus. And they talk about, I can't remember the line, but something about Jesus having like a swimmer's bod. So fucking good. It's such a good movie.
Y'all watch this. Okay.
Please check it out. So Carolyn,
all right.
I take great pleasure in knowing that these women would hate us referring to this episode as an example of DEI. Who's your favorite MAGA woman?
Well, okay. My first question, we kind of talked about this. So Jen and I always have dinner before we record. She cooks something amazing.
It's very Italian
But
American.
I was talking about, is Melania Trump, does she count?
Oh, absolutely.
But she's so silent.
She's not, but when she does open her mouth, she says some really fucked up shit.
I feel like she's very MAGA adjacent.
Yeah.
But she's not very outspoken. Like, I've never really even heard her talk more than a couple sentences.
She's Euro MAGA.
Yeah, she's
she's Euro MAGA. She looks all like, poised and like has her shit put together. I think that comes from years of being a professional model.
Yeah.
But I think one, not only does she hate her husband, two, I think she is absolutely okay with doing whatever it takes to be in proximity to power, which is gross and complicated. And
Well, so my first, and you'll love this, Anita Bryant.
Oh yeah, she's the worst.
I feel like you can't really talk about Christian nationalism if you're not talking about
She's
Anita
OG,
Bryant.
man.
She is OG.
Tell people who Anita Bryant is.
Anti-gay rights activist who mobilized Christian conservatives in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a San Franciscan, love the Castro, grew up loving Harvey Milk, Mayor Moscone.
My mom is a homo. Yeah.
And again, and I loved also, I still love her, Tammy Faye Baker. Again, it's that same type of thing where it's like, you can't see, I don't count her as a Christian nationalist. I count her as a true Christian, but she and her husband did some embezzling. I'm like, Tammy, girl, what's happening?
Maybe you're not a true Christian if you're going to embezzle some shit.
I'm going to blame that on Jim. I'm going to blame that on Jim. I'm Team Tammy. I don't know.
Tammy can do no wrong.
But yeah, I always felt like that was sort of the first thing I learned. Yeah. And I remember even thinking like, but they're just trying to be who they want to be. Why does this woman care? Like that was always, even as a kid. Yeah. I remember just being like, I don't know why it bothers her. Yeah. Why does it bother anyone? Like that was my simple kid mind.
Well, also you grew up in San Francisco.
Yes.
And my mom's a lesbian. So for me, it never made sense, like maybe if I were growing up in the Midwest and my mom weren't like queer as fuck, and you didn't live in San Francisco, maybe it would align more with whatever the teachings are, in that community.
Well, and also being into rock and punk and alternative. And being a theater and a dance kid, even like learning about all the stuff that was going on with Tipper Gore.
Censorship.
And censorship.
Censorship.
All the same stuff. Like it just always seemed like, but why do you guys care so much? Like find something else. Anyway, so she's the OG. All right, Sarah Palin.
Oh yeah.
Sarah Palin, vice presidential candidate who appealed.
I can see Russia from my backyard. Yes.
And also, you did a very good Sarah Palin.
Oh my God, you guys! So my husband's alma mater. Oh, I'm going to put the pictures on TikTok and on YouTube. My husband's alma mater, where he went to high school and worked for like 15 years. They had their big fundraiser for the year, and it was SNL themed. And I was like, well, I'm going to do Tina Fey as Sarah Palin.
You are a good Tina Fey too.
Yes. And so people were like, there were other people dressed like Sarah Palin, Tina Fey as Sarah Palin.
You nailed it.
I won the day.
You nailed it.
It's, I don't know if it's a good thing that I nailed it unless I'm solely going for Tina Fey as Sarah Palin and not Sarah Palin, in the flesh.
Sarah Palin was interesting too, because it's like not first woman vice president, but first, in my time, vice president candidate. So, okay. And then my last one is someone named Frances Willard. Do you know who that is?
I don't know who that is.
Right, so she led the Women's Christian Temperance Union.
Oh Lord. This just sounds bad. No pun intended.
Well, but again, like I'm very fascinated by substance use and alcoholism and Ken Burns, everything about the recovery program. And so much of why we feel the way we feel about drugs and alcohol are because of Christian nationalism and the temperance
because AA.
And it was women who led this because it was, just moral reform.
Is this what led to the formation of AA? Okay, that makes sense. I thought it was a dude that did AA.
I'm sorry, two dudes, but this is like true temperance.
Okay.
In like, we have a problem with the drunkards who are coming back from wars. Yeah. And again, it was all about the women who were like, we've got to protect everyone from these drunk dudes, but not our husbands. Like, and again, it's just, there's always this veil of hypocrisy. Yeah. Like, it's okay if it's brandy coming out of our cool ass crystal, but not if it's fucking Hobo Johnson over here.
Moonshine, the poor guy who lost a leg in World War I.
Yes. But it becomes whenever somebody has a moral imperative against another person, that has an air of you I am better than you.
Right.
Not because I'm a human being. We're actually exactly the same.
Yeah.
You just had a different life and you have different privilege,
That's
not
right.
me. And that is my problem with Christian nationalism.
That's right.
The
And
end.
that makes sense. That's one of the problems I have with Christian nationalism. So my favorite is Kimberly Guilfoyle. I think that's how you say her name. She's the former wife of Gavin Newsom, Democrat, turned MAGA nutbag. My favorite quote of hers, she's the one who's like, the best is yet to come. And you're like, oh my God, I think her head's going to explode. Like or at least the filler in her lips is going to explode. I can say that I have filler in my lips. It's all good, but I'm going to make fun of her for it. Actually, no, we're not going to. I'm going to talk about that. So, but anyway, my favorite quote of hers is, I would come here too. Who doesn't want a free ride? I want to ride in the carnival for free all day and put my whole family on welfare. What the fuck does that even mean? No idea. I think she actually might be the ambassador of Greece now. I'm really sorry, Greece. Please don't judge us. Like, I don't mean to export this kind of lunacy, but
wow.
So, Carolyn, I immediately fell into a joke making fun of Kimberly, who has a very, there's a similar MAGA aesthetic that's shared by
filter.
There's
a MAGA filter.
Is there
on
really?
TikTok.
But when you look at the women of Fox News, et cetera, and like a lot of the MAGA women, maybe not Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert, they tend to be more au natural.
they're dark and dangerous.
There's something going on with them. Bad bleach blonde, like girl, you have money now. Like you can get your hair done.
Who's the one with the dark hair with the gray?
Oh shit.
What's her name?
That's
she's on Trump's.
It will come to me. She's really pretty, actually.
Yeah. She's very different looking, which is kind of why I like her. She's got like kind of a creepy Linda Ron, like a more gothy Linda Ron style
she's almost
vibe to
butch,
her.
and I'm like, I like you. You're like my mom. You're like a lipstick lesbian.
She's not dom femme enough for me.
It will come to me.
Okay.
Fuck, it's driving me nuts. Anyway, I'm going to move on. So
sorry.
I want to go on record. We want to go on record and say that while we love Mother Jones, we absolutely disagree with this piece they did targeting MAGA women for their love of over-aggressive cosmetic surgery and procedures. We've already covered both erotic capital and plastic surgery. We're not going to make this our focus, you guys. Like Carolyn and I do things to our face. We have absolutely no problem with other people who do things to their face. My body, my choice extends to the whole of our bodies. So we don't punch down on other women for what they do to their bodies and faces, period. We link the article, nonetheless, just go ahead, review it. I felt like I had to make fun of her because she's a disgusting human being, not because of what she does to her face.
That's why we make fun of you, because you're a disgusting human being.
Right.
Not because there's so many other things. I don't need to talk about how you look.
No, the things coming out of your mouth are disgusting. Yes. I don't need to focus on your face.
Yeah.
So, we want to really, the most important thing for us is digging into the power plays that are shaping our country. And we want to discuss how a growing movement of Republican women is helping shape a vision of America grounded in Christian nationalism. That's where we're at. That's what we want to focus on. These aren't background figures, y'all. These are governors, members of Congress, media influencers, and cultural leaders, and they're building power, shaping policy. And in many cases, they're invoking God's name in the process, as we mentioned. So how did we fucking get here? Who are the women leading this charge? What does it mean for democracy, religion, and the future of this country? Let's dive into it. Let's start with who these women are in the first place. So this is a pretty familiar cast of characters, right? We mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene, who called the Republican Party the party of Christian nationalism, right there for God and country to hear and see. Yeah. Lauren Boebert, who said the church should direct the government, not the other way around. Okay. Christine Noem, who signed laws deeply influenced by conservative Christian values. And then we have Nikki Haley, more subtle, but still aligned with evangelical platforms. There's also media voices like, what's her name? Tommy Lauren and Kayla, what is it?
Kaylee McEnany.
McEnany? I don't even know, dude. Shaping hearts and minds on Fox News and social platforms.
Clearly we don't watch enough Fox News.
We don't watch any Fox News. Maybe we should. We need to know what's going on. And one of the more behind the scenes players whom I mentioned, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, Ginni Thomas. She is very frightening. So these women, as we said, they don't agree on everything, but they do believe that Christianity, specifically their interpretation, that's the linchpin right there, should guide American law and culture. So what is Christian nationalism? We've been rattling on about it since we started, 15 minutes ago. I think it's important to define what we're talking about. So Christian nationalism is more than just being Christian, a Christian who loves America. It's actually a political ideology that says America is and should always be a Christian nation, that its laws should be based on biblical scripture, that secular government is a threat, and that diversity, whether religious, racial, or cultural, needs to take a backseat to traditional values, i.e. white values.
It's very unconstitutional.
It is. It stands in complete and total opposition to the Constitution, and most importantly, the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment in particular. That, in terms of how we run this country, that is my quote unquote Bible, is the Constitution, which I know is subject to interpretation to an extent.
That's how it's created.
There's argument on that, right? There's people like Scalia, right, who took a very strict, what's called a constructionist outlook. Nope, this is not an evolving document. We have to look at it through what the framers intended. It's I don't think
that, but they didn't.
They didn't.
They wanted it to be movable.
Yes, it's supposed to be an evolving document. They were smart enough to know things are going to change.
Yeah.
That does not fly with me. No, it's an evolving document.
Yeah, agreed.
So anyway, it's just fucking crazy. So
come at us.
Yes. So the ideology has roots in white supremacy, dominion theology, and the idea of manifest destiny, i.e. God told us to take this land from Native Americans. And increasingly, Republican women are its most visible champions. So this is from a Time article. I thought this was recently interesting. To fully understand the deep roots of today's white Christian nationalism, we need to go back to 1493. Not the year Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but the year in which he returned to a hero's welcome in Spain, bringing with him gold, brightly colored parrots, and nearly a dozen captive indigenous people.
I got birds and
slaves and spices and shit. Yeah,
not cool.
Not cool, bro. It was also the year he was commissioned to return to the Americas with a much larger fleet of 17 ships, nearly 1,500 men, and more than a dozen priests, to speed the conversion of indigenous people who inhabited what he, along with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, still believed were Asian shores.
Which shouldn't, that's what I love to,
they're in the wrong place. I think they were in the DR. They were in the Dominican Republic, dude.
These people have been there for centuries and they're like, what the fuck?
Oh my God. Y'all don't even know where you are.
Don't take our parrots.
Yeah. Yeah, we like these birds. What the fuck is wrong with y'all? I hope the parrots learned how to talk and called them colonizers. That would be amazing. So the return of Columbus in 1493, it precipitated one of the most fateful but unacknowledged theological developments in the history of Western Christian church, the creation of what has become known as the doctrine of discovery. I didn't really know about this until I read this. So established in a series of 15th century papal bulls, that says it all. Official edicts that carry the full weight of the church and papal authority. The doctrine claims that European civilization and Western Christianity are superior to all other cultures, races, and religions. So it's from this premise that all of this comes from. And then we have the subjugation of indigenous people. Don't knock your mic over. I could probably edit that out. But yeah, this is the origin of all of this.
The great lie.
It is a great lie. Yeah, it is a great lie.
It's basically saying that I'm better than you.
Right.
Terry Real. I gave you that book, Us, on couples therapy.
I have not read it, but I have it.
Well, he talks about this.
He does.
This concept of the great lie. And it's funny that it comes up in couples therapy, but it's that idea that I'm superior to you because of what I think and how I feel.
Okay.
Versus we're both human. You're going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes.
Yeah. Huh.
That's what we should be bonded over in therapy, in couples therapy.
Yes. That makes sense.
Except for I'm never wrong. I'm just kidding. Sometimes one person is actually wrong.
I feel similarly. Yes, it's true. But I get what you're saying. Yeah. You should not be trying to approach problem solving from this philosophy of I'm better.
Yes.
I'm always right.
And I'm divine in that.
Yes. And in this case, there was like genocide that followed. So it's worse than having a fight with my husband. It's, big fallout, right?
Same concept, but on a global level.
Yes.
It's not funny. I'm sorry.
Terrible.
I do not mean to
No, it's
laugh.
not. I think people know us by now. They know we jest because this is some heavy
really
stuff,
uncomfortable.
and it's uncomfortable. And that's
how we roll.
That's how we roll. So let's talk about the power of feminine influence, because this is where it gets a little ironic, right? Because women are usually subjugated in Christian faith or certain Christian spaces, right? Not all of Christianity. So many of these women operate in spaces like they've had traditionally limited female leadership. Yet they've carved out influence by aligning themselves with the patriarchal power structure, which is typically what white women do, right? Yep. How do I gain power? I'm going to align myself with the power structure. And in this case, it's white supremacy, patriarchal power.
Who they want me to be.
Right. Exactly. I'm going to be a benefit to them and an accessory of them. It's very similar to The Handmaid's Tale, right? Offred, and you are a derivative of a man. You're a mouthpiece, but you're only supposed to echo the sentiments of what the man believes.
I like the commander's wives more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Who don't have any power, but they have more power than the other women. Which that it can be unfortunately, coming from an all-girl school, that can be a very female.
Sure. And we see it all the time in our society, right? And we see women, you and I, whatever privilege and power we have by virtue of being white, middle class, etc., we feel it's our obligation to leverage that to bring other people up and to open the door and to, speak against injustice against our sisters of color. Yeah. Whereas some people are like, nope, fuck you. I have privilege. I have power. I'm not trying to share that with nobody. And the only people that I want to be, stand in alignment with are the white dudes who are in power, who are making the rules. I, from a power, solely from a study of power and proximity to power, I understand it personally as an egalitarian and somebody with empathy and social justice values. Don't understand.
Well, and to me, it makes you seem actually weaker because you're basically saying I don't have any power. So let me align as close as I can to a man because he has all the power.
Right. And I want to forfeit, the power that I could amass through collective action with my sisters.
Yes.
But instead, I'm going to push for policies that actually promote the subjugation of them. Oh, you're not allowed to control your body.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Well, I don't want to control it.
Yeah. I need somebody to tell me what to do.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Anyway. So, these women, it's interesting because they're reinforcing these traditional gender roles of mom, wife, warrior for God. Lauren Boebert actually famously said she's tired of the separation of church and state junk. Okay. Junk. Very well read, Lauren Boebert.
Thanks, Lauren.
Marjorie Taylor Greene invokes biblical references to justify everything from immigration bans to anti-trans legislation.
And only the ones that work. And this is one of my favorite things about Christian nationalists too, that they only do the ones that work in their favor.
Oh, absolutely. They haven't read the entirety of the Bible. It's like they haven't read the New Testament.
And it's not a historical book.
No,
it's someone's thoughts on their place and time in history. It's not law.
Place and time.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Yeah.
It is the history of what's going on in a very constrained space.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Clearly, they did not read the book of Ruth or Esther.
Right. Well, the what is it called?
Testament
the New Testament, does not apply. The Jesus that you and I, those values that we were educated with in Jesuit school, they're like, fuck that. We're fire and brimstone. The small part of the Bible that says a man shan't lay with another man or whatever. It's such a tiny part of the Bible, is my understanding. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a biblical scholar. I have never read the Bible. I've read pieces of it, but I've never read the Bible. My understanding is that is a fraction of the Bible.
It's very
and they
tiny.
have blown it up into this platform.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
I digress. So, Lauren Boebert, MTG as they call her, they're not just participating in Christian nationalism, they're helping to define it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it in family-friendly packaging. These are the moms, daughters, and teachers claiming the mantle of morality while pushing for policies that restrict abortion, LGBTQ rights, secular education, and religious diversity. And you know what? They're doing it on behalf of dudes like fucking Trump and Musk, who have all cheated on their wives. They've got children from multiple women.
Yep.
They are not virtuous. They are not good Christian men by any definition of the term.
Yeah.
And that's the irony of it all. That's the hypocrisy.
That's what I can't make logic. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I'm sorry.
It doesn't make sense. So, Carolyn, talk to us a bit.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting, the women's role in all of this. So talk to us. How are women's bodies tied into nationalism or Christian nationalism?
It's all very, like, I love how you're saying, like, it's all very packaged. And to me, all I can think of is like packaged, like McDonald's is packaged as a family-friendly meal. They're not wrong.
It's a happy meal with hate.
Well,
with a side of hate.
It's like, and it always feels too like culty.
It is culty.
It starts off being like, yeah, that is nice. And then you're like, oh, wait, no, you said something weird.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Totally.
Oh, wait, pink slime? No.
Pink slime. What are we on, Double Dare?
No, isn't that what makes all McDonald's food? It's like pink slime.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking
Double
about.
Dare.
Yeah, Double Dare.
All right. Well, anyway, so let's talk about women's bodies and nationalism. So if you read Howard Zinn's history of, I'm sure you've read that history of, I put the title.
People's History of the United States. I have read it. Yes.
The actual narrative of women of color and Native Indigenous women, laborers, bodies have been provided as material and symbolic resources to nationalism and colonial projects across time.
Yeah.
So, but let's start there with even prior to America, England.
Yeah.
Any colonializing white, and I'm sure you can even look further back, any type of patriarchal thing, right? So we have these national identities that are often linked to women and their reproductive capacity.
Right.
Now, Carolyn thinks that men are really intimidated and frightened of the fact that women have this power.
Yeah.
And I think from a very old standpoint, it probably seemed pretty fucking like, whoa, what the hell?
Magic. Black magic in your vagina.
But most cultures, think about the cultures that are matriarchal.
Right.
It's revered.
Yeah.
You don't fuck with a woman because look what she can do. So it makes sense to me from a fear perspective of why that got, what would be the word, focused on.
Yeah.
Right. So we're indoctrinated to believe and adhere to the construct that when women resist their expectations, projections, and roles, their resistance impacts the development of a national identity.
And the propagation of the species.
We are seeing that right now.
We are.
For $5,000, Jen. Let's actually see. Hey, I'm up for it. I'm like, I don't know. Should we have, my partner and I are like, do we want a kid? I don't know. We're very
you
yay
have
or
to have
nay.
at least 6 in order to get this motherhood award from the Trump administration. Have you heard about this?
I've babysat 5 children. And it's a lot. The only way I would do that is if I'm getting paid to do it. God bless the person who's doing that. So anyway, this isn't a fringe belief. That was all from Howard Zinn's, right? But this isn't a fringe belief system.
No.
We know this. According to Whitehead and Perry, Whiteheads, research from 2020, this is from 2020 book titled Taking America Back for God. About 20%, and again, this is in 2020, 20% of Americans strongly embrace Christian nationalist ideologies, with another 30% sympathizing with aspects of it. I love how, what's the sympathizing? Like,
I'm a Christian nationalist sympathizer.
What the fuck? I don't know what that is. But I thought that was
a Nazi sympathizer.
I need to look up.
You might as well be a Nazi or a Christian nationalist.
Right. So let's just say it's 60%, right? So their work identified what they call accommodators, people who may not fully embrace Christian nationalism, but find aspects of it particularly appealing, particularly the cultural security. This is what always rips me to shreds. Cultural security offers in times of social change. So basically you're racist.
Yes.
Like that's what I'm hearing.
Yes. That's what it all comes back to. This is all about white nationalism,
supremacy.
Yes.
And going back to the Terry Reals, the lie. that you fundamentally believe you are better than someone because of something that is totally out of your control.
That's the brilliance of systemic racism.
Yes.
It's like, oh, we can't have these people who economically are on the same plane, like coalescing power and standing up against us. So we have to tell the white ones that they're superior. Let's give them a little bit of land too, and indoctrinate them with white supremacy.
Yes.
And they're going to turn against their Black brothers and sisters, or, indigenous brothers and sisters, whatever the case may be.
Whatever that is.
Yep.
Whatever it is. And
it's so brilliant, but it's so fucked up.
And it's brilliant because it's calculated.
Right.
And it's, like you said, it's systemic. So again, the age-old question, though, going back to your question, what do women's bodies have to do with nationalism?
Tell me.
All right. So everything. And let me talk to you about the research. Research suggests that authoritarian movements often promote an idealized version of femininity that combines traditional values with modern self-presentation. It's not a return to the 1950s housewife, but it's now a new hybrid form, like you're seeing, right? So looking at all this research,
like
which strikes trad wife. Bingo. What strikes me is this complexity of women's relationships with the nationalist movement. It's simply not just about, it's never oppression or liberation. It's kind of how you and I are looking at this.
Yeah.
It's really important that we emphasize that pointing out these patterns isn't demonizing the women in the movement. It's understanding they're cogs in the system too. They just haven't realized it.
Right.
And understanding the complex ways that gender, religion, and nationalism intersect.
Yeah.
So political movements don't exist in a vacuum, as you know. They address real psychological needs. And even if we disagree with their solutions, let's, again, starting with the basics about the nation. They're not just talking about land and borders.
Right.
They're talking about identity.
Yes.
Who belongs, who gets protected, and crucially, who reproduces the next generation of good little patriots.
Did you see the picture of the mom movement that they're the reproduction movement? It's like the faith office or whatever that Trump has established, which of course it's solely centered on Christian faith. And they showed all these women and they're all like pregnant white women. The imagery is really frightening, y'all. I don't know if it's AI generated. I don't know if it's real, but we know what the intention is. And that picture is a manifestation of what they're trying to promote.
Well, and this is what we saw with the eugenics movements with Nazi Germany.
Yes.
Let's create this master race that's not full of this. And that's not even true.
I know.
White people were so boring. I don't, you know how I know I'm not the white supremacist? Is if I walk into a room and there's nothing but white people, I leave.
You're also
Jewish.
That
is not the restaurant I want to sit at.
Well, that's, I did that TikTok recently about the beauty of diversity and how you and I are so lucky to be from a city, or in my case, have a mom that's from a city that is just, we have culture coming out of our ears, right? Yeah. We can walk to Chinatown and have an authentic meal and experience authentic Chinese culture. North Beach, and you got my people, we've got Little Saigon. And this city would suck without that.
Yeah.
And this is why this is a number-one tourist destination in the world.
The art and the creativity and the and this is always what goes after first, but that is not a good patriot.
Right.
So here's some more research for you if you want any more.
I always want more research.
Whitehead and Perry again, taking America back for good. Oh, I think I might have already talked about that. Yeah, I did. But yeah, just this rigid sense of gender roles, that women are the moral backbone of the home, but they're not the leaders, which I disagree with. It takes any adult who's in a home. Like, it's a partnership.
It is a partnership.
Get the fuck over yourself.
And statistics show time and time again. And I love my husband, and he's very helpful. But I forget what it's called, like the intellectual labor. Like all of that stuff. Like, I've got to, all these schedules and shit. Like I keep them. Like, doctor's appointments, etc. Like, most of that falls on women. Well, so who's really running that?
Even in same-sex relationships, there's always a dominant partner who's just categorically better at that.
Right. Or more experience,
more suited,
more resource.
It doesn't stress them out.
Yes.
In the same way that it would, like, I'm that partner where there's certain things, but that's the partnership. You find what you're good at. They find what they're good at, and you work things out. You complement each other. All right. So let's talk about Jesus and John Wayne. This is a very cool
John
book
Wayne
by
is a
Dumez.
super racist. Tell me more.
So here's the summary, because I didn't read the book.
Okay.
But it reads like, this is the summary, thanks AI. It reads like the greatest hits album of toxic masculinity. Again, the book is called Jesus and John Wayne. Dumez shows how white evangelical fused Jesus with the Marlboro Man image, militant, rugged, head of household, and how women were expected to submit and support, not lead, not question, just bake the casserole and raise future soldiers for Christ and country. But it's not just about religion. We're also looking at the psychology of this. So
Right.
Jost and Hunyadi explain how ideologies, it's all linked in our show notes, ideologies like nationalism work to justify this system, especially when that system keeps women barefoot, pregnant, and out of the boardroom. And that's what I think is really interesting. I'm really curious to see how much longer these women actually stay. I'm going to speed way ahead because I wrote so much stuff here.
You did write a lot.
It's a really interesting topic. And
It
I
is
feel
interesting.
very passionately about this.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll do some TikToks about this.
Okay.
But
That'd be good.
This I thought was interesting though. So Saba Mahmood gives a more complex view in politics of piety. And she says, wait a minute, Muslim women who embrace modesty and religious devotion aren't necessarily brainwashed. They're making agenic choices in a system with different logic. So if you're about to say save Muslim women, pause and ask who you're centering.
Yes.
So we do see that. So, but again, back to America, there's so much stuff around and back to women's bodies. They're used as symbols of morality, boundary markers of identity, and literal producers of the nation. That's why you're not going to see anything other than the binary.
Yeah.
There's no room for intersex. There's no room.
Yes.
There's no room for anyone who's not using their body to procreate.
Right.
And I'm like, but you're being stupid because trans people can still have children.
Absolutely.
They still could.
And there are plenty of cis people who are incapable of having children for one reason or another.
So your logic, if you really just want more babies, then you should be indoctrinating just people who want babies.
Right.
But anyway, so as a feminist LMFT, let me just finish with this. If the state is more interested in your womb than your well-being, that's a red flag. I think if anyone's more interested in that, it's not patriotic. These movements offer psychological benefit to the adherents, the community, the purpose, the moral clarity, and the sense of continuity with rapidly changing times. Understanding this psychological appeal is absolutely pivotal right now, because if we want to engage with these movements effectively rather than simply dismissing them, then you have to understand what their meaning of family values is and check who's carrying the weight of of that family value, because it's not the husband.
No. And I think it's folly to dismiss any of this because it's incredibly dangerous.
Yes.
And to say, oh, these are just a bunch of whack jobs. No. This is frightening. And this has been the touchstone for white supremacy for a very long time. We're just seeing it go backward, I think, in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time. And that is particularly alarming, but it's always been here.
Yes.
It's always been here. So eyes on not the prize, but eyes on the trash, eyes on this dumpster fire that is Christian nationalism floating through a river of
power, right?
Knowledge is power. And I think knowing your enemy is incredibly important, especially right now, because we have to be several steps ahead, or at least try to get several steps ahead. And it's really hard right now because their voices seem to be
so
louder.
Organized.
Well, they tend to be more organized, which sucks. We have to get more organized, and our democratic leadership needs to be more,
like Bernie and AOC. We need to be more
progressive and aggressive.
Yes.
Like, I'm gonna fight. Like, I am not a pacifist in that sense. Like, I'm not talking about warfare in the street, though who knows, it could get to that level. But I'm talking about like taking a stance and doing so loudly and getting in people's faces. Well, like, I'll play their game to an extent.
You are more likely to have more bandwidth for that because of your privilege.
Right.
Whereas
That's right.
someone else might not have that ability.
Yeah.
Please don't die. Please don't go to jail. But I'm less worried about
surprised
you.
I have not been locked up yet, given how often I've been in these streets.
You're very well spoken.
But
I wouldn't want to fuck with you.
That might be why I'll get locked up.
Jen.
We shall see. Don't be afraid. We're on the same side. So, I think it's important to talk about where ideology meets policy.
Mm-hmm.
So these women are behind or supporting bills that, we talked about this. Ban abortion with no exceptions for the most part. Remove LGBTQ plus inclusive curriculum from schools and just the identities of these folks in general, as you mentioned. There's no room for them in their ideology and their framework of what this country should look like. Yes, they want to defund DEI initiatives. We know that. They want to promote prayer in school. They want to require Christian symbols in public buildings. They want to limit immigration from non-Christian, i.e. non-white countries. In fact, Trump said it. Mm-hmm. He said, we need more immigration from European countries. Just swap European with white. We know what you're saying, dummy.
Yeah.
You're not that good. So it's not just about faith. It's about reshaping the government to enforce religious doctrine. That's the frightening stuff. And in many ways, they're taking cues from a playbook, as we said, that's decades old. Yeah. This is nothing new. Aligning faith with patriotism and blending church with state and framing opposition as godless or evil. So, here's some specific examples that I found in our research here. So Christian Wagner, she's the president and CEO and general counsel of the Alliance Defending Freedom. Under her leadership, the ADF has strategically used the courts to further reshape the country in their perceived image of God's design, including by using manufactured incidents to prop up their lawsuits. Wagner has been an integral part of several high-profile legal cases that have dismantled the rights of marginalized Americans. So she was on Mississippi's legal team in Dobbs versus Jackson. That was the women's health organization, the case that overturned Roe v. Wade. Yeah. Led to disastrous outcomes, obviously, for pregnant people across the country. She's also been brazen in her opposition to the rights of queer people. And after the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage in 2015, she told USA Today that the decision not only jeopardizes religious freedom, but it jeopardizes all of our religious liberties. She's insane. She also, this is more your lane. She tried to overturn a Washington law that banned licensed therapists from practicing conversion therapy, insisting the legal protection violated free speech and religious freedoms. Let's torture some kids, shall we? It got really dark in here.
I was just going to ask you if we need to turn the light on for something.
I think it's just happening. I can add some light later to our video. Okay. It's all good.
I'm glad you must have been picking up I was like, should I say something?
No, I think we'll have to. So guys that are listening to just the audio, we are really trying to be more of a presence on YouTube and trying to record our recording sessions. And so, it's a learning curve. And I just realized that the sun is going down and it looks like a funeral parlor in here. That's kind of the look I'm going for.
I like it.
Yeah, it's like the Addams family lives here. Anyway,
I love it.
We'll shine some light on it later.
Right.
So then we have this person named Senator Katie Britt. She's a Republican. She's the youngest woman ever elected to the U.S. Senate and Alabama's first female senator. She gave the Republican rebuttal to President Joe Biden's State of the Union in March 2024. I think she was the one in the kitchen. Remember? She gave the rebuttal in the kitchen. I was like, oh, good God. She's had a hand in several attempts to bolster religious schools and erode Americans' reproductive care rights. In 2023, she co-sponsored a bill that resembled model policy from the American Legislative Exchange Council, an organization founded by religious rights figure Paul Weyrich. The bill would give a tax credit to any person or organization who donates to scholarships, granting organizations for private and charter schools, diverting money away from the government and public schools to religious schools. Yep.
Wow.
So, this person has done a lot. These people that I mentioned have done a lot. And there are only two of the many who are out there who are propagating this shit. So, Carolyn, talk to us about how these women use or misuse religious frameworks to justify or critique national policies. And because it's us, I am going to get up and turn on the light because who gives a shit? Hold tight, everybody, because I'm probably not going to edit this out. I don't know if we got the skills to do it.
Yeah,
there you go.
That feels nice. I just feel like it's going to be dark and I want people to see you at all. That can't be good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk God, girls, and government.
I love it.
Right? Our 3 G's, not God, gold, and glory.
Or God,
girls are bigger. And I say girls very specifically.
Okay. Tell me why.
Because these are not women to me. These are very much little girls.
Emotionally speaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the sense of like naive stupidity.
I don't know. I think they know what they're doing.
Do
I think
you?
yes. I think, I don't think I think some of the ones we've mentioned aren't very bright, but I think somebody like Ginni Thomas is incredibly intelligent and knows exactly what she's doing. That is what's scary.
Yeah.
People like Boebert and, what's her face? Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't think they're bright.
No.
That's putting it mildly.
Right.
But there are plenty of women in the movement who actually are intelligent, know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing so willingly. And that's what's scary. That's what's scary.
Well, all right. So before we start, I want to be clear. I'm not mocking anyone's faith. That is not what you and I are about.
Absolutely not.
I am a therapist. You are a human being above all else. And I'm not, and all you and I are ever interested in is understanding the psychological mechanisms at work here.
Totally.
So there's a lot to unpack in this designer spiritual tote bag. It's probably a fake one too. These bitches probably don't even have real shit. Anyway, that was catty. Sorry.
I bought this out the trunk of a car. No, that's more my move. I'm working class. I'm the one that has to buy my fake designer shit in Santee Alley in LA. Big up to Santee Alley. I miss my ex-husband was from LA.
Is that the fashion district?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'd go to the fashion district, Santee Alley. They had the best fakes, except when a raid had transpired recently. And then you're like, this is some fucked up Fucci. Like, no, this sucks. Anyway, please go on. I digress.
All right. So let's dive into what this show is actually, what we like to show in this phenomenon.
Yes.
All right. So first there's what I call the selective spiritual or selective scripture buffet. We talked about this, right? So Jeannie Crabell's research found that women in these movements, especially expertly select which biblical passages to emphasize. They highlight verses about gender roles, always.
Yes.
Family structure, which conveniently sidesteps the inconvenient commands about welcoming strangers or caring for the poor.
Right.
So I actually I know a lot more than most people think I know about the Bible.
Ton. You went to Christian school.
I went to Lutheran school. I'm a fucking Jew and I was a kiss ass. So even though I wasn't
and you went to Catholic
Christian,
school.
I wanted to be the best fucking Christian up at West Portal Lutheran. And anyone out there knows I made the best devotions.
Oh my God. I love it.
Skits and shit. Anyway.
My God is an awesome God.
The wine's kicking. I know every song.
You do.
Mario thinks it's so creepy. I was seeing, were you there when he brought him from the tomb the other night?
You and my husband.
This is beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing. It's perfect for Easter. You and my husband, who grew up Catholic and then worked at a Catholic school for 15 years, the two of you, the songs I'm like, whoa.
But it's funny.
Cannot relate.
The Lutherans did like Sister Act shit before that was a thing.
That's cool.
So we knew like fun Christian songs
that's why I
from
Baptist
Saved.
Church.
I know. It was kind of funny, except for anyway, that's another story. Anyway, so we talked about this. They highlight the things that conveniently work for them and they cherry pick to justify policy preferences.
Mm-hmm.
That's not cool. So there's the mom authority. Now I'm curious what you think about this. Emily Johnson's research published in the Journal for Scientific Study of Religion shows these women strategically deploy their maternal identity to gain political legitimacy. One woman in her study actually said, quote, "As a mother, I have a God-given authority to speak for America's children, all of America's children."
Fuck no.
That bothers me. Not as a non-mother, but as someone who loves children and is taking care of probably more children than any of these women.
Yes.
And it bothers me when they say, like, as a mother, oh, I'm so offended when a trans person is, or a drag queen is talking. It's like, bitch, this is the fucking Muppets. There's a person in a freaking, there's a hand up their ass and they're talking out a garbage can.
And you love Mrs. Doubtfire, bitch. Yeah. But no, to me, that is antithetical to what being a mother is. First of all, there is strength in being a mother and there is a revolutionary component to mothering because we have the ability to reproduce children. Also, children who are unwanted by mothers like her, who would disavow relationships with, a kid who grows up to be trans or who is trans. I'm the mom who says, "No, I'm gonna love you all.
Yes.
I don't give a fuck who you are. I'm gonna show you some love." Maybe Jeffrey Dahmer, but even then,
as a child, I would have loved him dearly until he started doing some of the other stuff. But that was
the beautiful part about one of the beautiful parts. I thought the primary beautiful part about that movie, but also very sad, was the focus on the victims, which I think was very much needed. And I'm talking about the series on, I think it was Netflix. But you remember the scene at the end where, Jeffrey's killed in prison and his dad is like mourning over his body.
Yeah.
Like that's still his son.
Yes.
That's what a parent does.
Yeah.
You love your child unconditionally.
And that's humanity. Like, you don't have to be my child for me to, if I see a child who needs help, I will help them.
Yes.
I'll also be really frightened that they're a ploy and someone trying to like pull me into their
oh no, he's going to make me into a creepy lampshade in his living room. But no, also these are the same people who have absolutely no problem locking children up, migrant children up.
Yes.
Like 2-year-olds.
It's
what the fuck?
It's very, 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 very strange. And
it's an us versus them mentality, and motherhood has no place in that.
No. And so we can agree. We don't like that. So
we should
again, the psychology is fascinating here, because when traditional religious spaces limit women's authority, maternal citizenship offers a backdoor to power. And so it's like saying, this is the quote from Emily Johnson's research. It's, if I can't be the pastor, I can certainly tell the government what God wants for your kids.
Interesting.
Which I thought was funny. So, all right, here's my favorite though, the apocalyptic hot take. McDaniel and his colleagues, it's in the notes. Because I forgot to actually put what article it was from, but it's in there. Just look for McDaniel. Found that these women often frame policy debates as literal spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
Healthcare reform isn't just a disagreement. It's a demonic attack on American values.
Dude, how could ensuring that everybody gets access to healthcare be antithetical to what something Jesus would have wanted?
Because Matthew Sutton's research transforms this mundane policy into cosmic drama, where the women are cosmic drama.
I need a shirt that says that. Why are you starting that cosmic drama, bitch? God damn it.
Where women are spiritual warriors in an epic battle for the American soul.
Oh, Lord in heaven.
And as a therapist, I can recognize this provides tremendous psychological benefits, because fighting spiritual forces feels really significant.
I think
and really just, arguing tax brackets isn't enough.
Like, I'm important. Look at me. Yeah. I'm on the side of Jesus.
Exactly. Well, it's like, that's what I mean about the little girlness. It's like when a little girl puts on her mommy's shoes and thinks she's a woman.
I'm a soldier
it's like,
in the army of the Lord. I'm a soul. That's actually a really good gospel song. I should not be taking that out of context. But that's what it is.
True.
It's like, I feel like there's, I think a lot of people want power. And they're like, if I align myself with the highest power for a lot of people, then I am a mouthpiece for that power.
It's
and you cannot disagree with me. It's
fuck you power though. And it's never, it does not sustain. You will always get outed by people. Love always wins. Sorry.
It does.
Love will always win.
Dude, all you got to do is watch the fucking Lord of the Rings is my analogy for all of this. It's like, I'm telling you, it's that image of Gandalf coming over the mountaintop, white light behind him with all of the like good soldiers. And he's like, fuck you orcs. And eventually they're all vanquished.
I'm not a Lord of the Rings person, but I just got goosebumps because what you're bringing up is, to me, what spirituality is. It's a sense of awe in the magnificence of humanity
and kindness.
And kindness.
Yes.
That goose pimples.
That's why I love Francis.
Blessed be the tax cuts, y'all. Research. Do you like the titles? I like the titles.
I'm gonna flip some tables. Jesus was flipping tables. You can't be changing money in the temples and taxing people.
No. So research by Alicia and colleagues found that women who, I need to start putting the actual thing in. I don't like how I'm doing that now. Women who found that women who endorse prosperity theology, which I didn't know that was the term, but I like that, prosperity theology are significantly more likely to support nationalist economic policies while opposing welfare programs. Okay. And there's a fascinating cognitive dissonance here, which we've talked about before. The same biblical literist will ignore verses about caring for the poor when it comes to economic policy. So you can't say to them, but wait a minute, this. They'll say, no, but this. So you can't argue with them. They're always going to be right.
These are like the Joel Austins.
Yes. And this is why it's a matter to me. And this is why it has to matter to mental health professionals, because we need to understand the psychological payoffs that these framework provides. And research is showing us that when you ask people to explain these systems of belief, it actually, when they're not talking about it, for you and I, it reinforces anxiety and stress. But, this is hopefully, if I don't get any Christian nationalists in my practice, but if I did, I would certainly want to talk about your belief systems, because this cannot be a good way for you to live.
Right.
If you're afraid of all that and you really think you're a spiritual warrior, can you imagine how fearful the world must feel to you? That can't be good for you. And all that just, it's just not, you're not meant to have such a moral high ground.
Yeah.
So again, on one hand, understanding doesn't require agreement, but it does require listening. And even when what I'm hearing makes me and you very, very angry, and it's really dangerous, my question often is, okay, then how do you talk to people? Mm-hmm. And how would you and I talk to women who hold these views? And I don't think nonviolent communication skills are going to work. So, because this is what they tell you.
I feel sad when you tell me.
Well, okay. So here's what we're told. And I'm going to do thumbs up, thumbs down yet. So meet them with compassion rather than condensation.
Condensation.
Condemnation.
Why can't I say condescension?
Condescension.
Jesus,
Thank you.
Jen,
I don't think that works. It's very hard to find compassion.
It is.
Understand the psychological functions. I do. Understand their underlying needs to be addressed: security, purpose, community. I do. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think they are really not grounded in who they are. I think
I don't think they're grounded in reality.
Of self.
Yes, it is very selfish, especially if we're talking about prosperity theology. It's all about their proximity to wealth and materialism.
But you have no sense of self and no self-esteem.
That's
if your
true.
Self-esteem is based off other people not being, you needing to be the best.
Yeah.
And proving that all day long.
And shitting on people.
Do you know how much easier it is to be progressive and be like, we're all fucked up and make mistakes. It's great.
Yeah, totally. No, it's true. It's true.
I embrace you.
Yeah. To carry around that sense of judgment, like that's got to be heavy. Like you think you're the moral authority on everything. Like, wow, that's quite the cross to bear. You're quite the martyr.
Literally.
Literally. So. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, or this is pretty much the end. This is the end. Beautiful. So let's talk about pushback and consequences. Of course, not everyone's going along quietly. Carolyn and I are prime examples of that. Christian leaders, legal scholars, activists are warning that this movement threatens democracy. Duh. Religious freedom and pluralism. Even some conservative Christians say this isn't faith. It's political extremism dressed up in Sunday clothes. I love that
I know.
shit.
I love all the things.
Yes. Let's not forget the U.S. Constitution, as we said, explicitly separates church and state, yet slowly and strategically that line's being blurred. And people have always tried to blur that line. There have always been elements of our society that have attempted to blur that line. I remember I got in trouble in high school because I didn't want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This was an auto shop because I took it in lieu of math because I could get math credits. I'm like, cool, I'm going to work on some cars.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to be like my lesbian mom who works on the car in the garage. I really didn't learn much though. It was mostly from a book. Oh. I don't even remember looking at an actual car at any point.
Damn it.
Our school didn't have a lot of resources. But anyway, the teacher, whom I actually love and respect, he was like, you need to stand. And I was like, I take umbrage with it being under God. Cause I'm 14 and I'm like, fuck you. And he sent me to the principal's office and I was like, and they didn't go any further on it. But still there was that that critical tension, that push and pull. Like, again, this I think came down more to patriotism in this person's eyes. For me, it was like, I am an atheist. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in a country under God. I do. And I do not endorse any sort of mention of God. In God we trust on the money. But anyway, just to show like, there's always been some tension, right?
Yeah.
And there are also, more importantly than my high school fray with my auto shop teacher, there's several ongoing lawsuits that are challenging the government actions that potentially violate the separation of church and state, primarily by impacting what's called the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. These lawsuits often involve public school policies, government funding of religious institutions, and displays of religious symbols on government property. This is why I love the Church of Satan, because they're like, all right, then we're going to put a sculpture of Baphomet right here on this fucking church lawn, or not church lawn.
Church of Satan. We need to do an episode on that.
We really do, because I don't think people necessarily know what Satanism is.
No, I don't think they do either. I think we're pretty Satanism-y.
We can be. Yes. And I don't see anything necessarily wrong with it. So maybe maybe one of our next episodes will be on that. I think people will find it fascinating. So, let me name a couple of lawsuits. So the Louisiana 10 Commandments lawsuit, I'm sure folks have heard of this, coalition of organizers, including the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I love them. The ACLU and Americans United for Separation of Church and State. They filed a lawsuit challenging a law requiring public schools to display the 10 Commandments. The ACLU states that the law violates the Establishment Clause by promoting religion in public schools. Couldn't agree more.
Or post them, but then I want to see the Quran.
Yes.
I want to see everything then.
But
I need a whole world religions thing.
And none of it belongs there.
None of it belongs there.
Well, let's talk about world cultures. Let's talk about world history.
Yes, exactly.
And religion can be a component of that education when we're learning about other cultures, but we're not trying to impose any sort of religious values, whether they be Christian, Muslim, Judaism, whatever the case may be, on anybody in a public school setting, because our Constitution prohibits that. So there's also something called the Oklahoma Bible Mandate lawsuit. Have you heard of this?
No.
I had neither. So Americans United for Separation of Church and State, love them as well. They filed a lawsuit against a law that would require public school teachers to teach the Bible as a subject. So there are a ton of cases, y'all. We're going to link them in our notes. Just know the courts are fighting. And we're seeing this not just with this subject matter and with this sort of infringement of religion in spaces where it does not belong per our Constitution, but in other things that the Trump administration is doing.
Yeah.
The courts are showing up for us.
Yeah.
Even the Supreme Court, where a huge percentage of the justices are either conservative and or have been put in their position by Donald Trump, they're now saying enough is enough. Or at least that's my hope.
I'm shocked.
That 11th hour, 1 a.m., order against the Trump administration, you will not deport these Venezuelan migrants to that prison in El Salvador. Cease and desist.
Kidnap.
Yeah.
You have to have due process to be deported.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These people were deprived of due process. A lower court had said, you cannot do this. The Trump administration lied and they're like, we're not going to do it.
We're not going to do it.
They tried to do it under the cover of night, putting these poor people on a bus to Texas. Guys, all of our listeners know this, but these people, for the most part, are not criminals. They're just hardworking folks. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that. Well, some of them are citizens who are getting deported or are authorized to be here. Yep. But I say this to say that the courts right now
are doing their job.
For the most part, are our allies.
Yeah, thank God.
Thank God. Yeah, thank God.
Satan.
Thank the Constitution.
Thank Earth.
Thank the Constitution and the separation of powers and how we establish checks and balances in this country. But if you have an authoritarian regime that says, fuck that, I'm not listening to that.
And dictators and fascists, which is exactly what they want.
Right. Well, then you're focused on, the National Guard. I think it's the National Guard is supposed to come in and enforce. I think it's the National Guard. Who controls that? It's Trump. It's Trump. He's the commander in chief. So it's nice to have the courts on our sides. It's nice to see the courts make ruling after ruling in favor of what I think is democracy and what our nation was established on and our highest beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. What our nation is supposed to be.
Yes.
But I'm still frightened.
Oh, Yeah.
We're all fighting, or a lot of us are fighting back.
Yeah.
My hope is that it makes a difference. And my hope is that it stops what I see is the spread of not only Christian nationalism, but hate and authoritarianism. So, our final thought here is we're watching a coalition of conservative women rise, not just as politicians or influencers, but as architects of a vision of America that blends nationalism, religion, and identity politics. Their power is growing, y'all. Their message is spreading, and their impact on the future of the country, especially for those who don't fit their version of God and country, can't be ignored. So remember, the First Amendment, again, doesn't only guarantee freedom of religion, it also guarantees freedom from religion. Mm-hmm. The First Amendment prohibits the government from establishing or favoring any religion. This means the government can't enact laws that create a state religion or unduly favor one religious group over another. The Establishment Clause, along with the Free Exercise Clause, aim to protect individual religious freedom and the separation of church and state. So this department that Trump has created, this group where they're supposed to root out discrimination against Christians, that smacks of favoritism and stands in sharp contrast to everything that I just named in our Constitution that says, nah, man, you actually can't do that. So,
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
So, we're living in scary times, y'all.
Yeah.
There's no sugarcoating it. Like, we're living in scary times. We, with what little platform we have, are trying to keep folks aware. I know we're largely preaching to the choir. Most of the people who listen to us agree with us.
Yeah. Share with your friends.
Share with your family. Share with your friends and your family who may disagree. And we always include the receipts. So, we pride ourselves on being a highly researched show.
Yeah.
That can back up what we're saying with quantifiable data and statistics and science. Mm-hmm. And for us, that's the holy grail.
Yeah.
Now, I've been in plenty of arguments with Trumpers who say, oh, you're relying on liberal bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, dude, like you're always going to say, oh, the liberal media is saying that, or, oh, that's not real science. I'm like, okay, man, like there's no talking to you.
That's the dissonance there. You can't argue with someone who's not interested in talking
or grounded in reality, who thinks absolutely everything is a conspiracy theory against the Trump administration. It's insane. But anyway, we provide the receipts. We pride ourselves on providing the receipts. Use our receipts anytime you're in a debate with somebody who disagrees with you or us. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We appreciate you listening. We are, as we mentioned, gravitating toward YouTube. And so this whole episode will ultimately be on YouTube once we work out all the editing kinks. And you can also find us on TikTok. We've got a community of almost 3,000 strong. We're at TWATJC, TWATJC. And we're also on Instagram. We need more people on Instagram, man.
Yeah.
The World According to Jen and Carolyn on Instagram. Follow us.
Yeah.
Check us out.
And we love you and we like you and we hope you hang in there.
Yes, absolutely. We're here for you. Write to us anytime. You can actually send us a text through Apple and Spotify.
Nobody's done it. Jen just keeps sending me fucked up time.
I know. I'm like messing with her. I'm like, what's up, ho? But yeah, this is a test, bitch. But yeah, please send us a text anytime. We're happy to read your stuff not on the air. It's not radio, but read in your episodes. So our episodes. So anyway, we appreciate you listening. We love y'all. Hang in there, y'all. We're all in this together. Bye.